As promised, we bring on our good friend Donna Ditota from Syracuse.com. Donna, great to talk with you. Is your summer off to a good start? I suppose it's not technically summer yet, but it kind of sort of is.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, sure. I mean, I'm not. It's not, the work isn't quite as hectic, so yeah, it's off to a good start in that way.
But you are still working, which is why we have you on, because you just sat down with Adrian Autry and had an in-depth conversation with him about many things, including the offseason, which is what we're talking about today. One of the things that stood out to me from the post, and we kind of have been discussing this on the show anyway, but it was interesting to hear him kind of say it out loud, is, it seems like with this portal class that they wanted to get better defensively and they wanted to get more athletic. And that was kind of how you started this post, which was Adrian Autry said they wanted to get more athletic and they wanted to get better defensively. So let's start there, Donna, with how they went about attacking the portal this year.
Yeah, I think that one of the things Adrian was saying was that, when they played better teams last year, those teams had better athletes, had quicker athletes, and Syracuse was just a little bit overwhelmed in that situation. They didn't have the athletes that to match up against those teams that were really good. So I think they were mindful of that when they went into the portal, and they wanted to get a little quicker, a little more athletic, a little bigger at every position. And so that's what they went in. That's the mindset they went in with, and those are the kinds of players that they pursued.
And again, not to call out anybody by name, but I mean, again, Jaquan Carlos was small, right? Eddie Lampkin wasn't super mobile, and it seems like those two positions in particular, point guard and center, they really said to themselves, we got to get more athletic, we got to get better defensively, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think in particular they really wanted to get some rim protection. I mean, they had no rim protection at all last year. I mean, so the verticality of the athlete, I think, was important. It's just as much as the nimbleness and the quickness and all of that. They wanted the guys to be able to protect the rim. And so the first two guys that they got certainly were those kinds of guys. And I think that they were very mindful in the way that they were putting together the roster in the sense that, they just couldn't contest at the rim, and that they wanted to be able to do that.
They got more athletic at the center position, Donna, but, in your opinion, are you concerned about the fact that there's lack of playing time at that position over the past couple of years from these guys?
Well, I mean, there's three guys that got now, right? They've got the young guy that they just got in their class, and then they've got two guys who haven't, you're right, they haven't played a ton. But I think, for what they want those guys to do, I think that I know that Adrian's really, really high on William Kyle. They love him. They tried to get him when he was coming out of South Dakota State and didn't get him. UCLA got him. And so they've liked him for a couple of years. And I think that they think that in their system, he'll be a different kind of player. I mean, the thing with UCLA is they had three pretty good big guys. And, they used all those guys. So, it's hard. Like I don't want to sit here and proclaim, on June 3rd that this is what Rochester's going to look like. This is how everybody's going to be. I mean, you can only speculate from here. I'm not going to make too many projections or predictions until we actually see them play in a game or see in a practice. But I think they did do a good job in that position of getting guys who can contest, and I think that was a huge issue last year. I don't think, last year they were very good at pounding the ball into the post, and Jair could score in there, and Eddie could score in there. That's not going to be how they are this year. I think they're going to do a lot of pick and roll with Nate George and whoever was playing center, and that's how they're going to score from the post. But I think it's going to be a completely different way that they're going to try to get points this year, and that they're trying to defend with a completely different prototype of center.
Donna, I said let's start with talking about how they approach the portal, but I want to back up even one more step because you did make reference in there to Donnie and JJ coming back. Yeah. How open was Coach Autry about, the conversations he had with those guys in terms of bringing them back? Was it a difficult sell? Was it, were they on board from, as soon as the season ended, okay, we're coming back, let's run it back and let's get it right this year? What did he say about those conversations? And then can you talk a little bit about how involved they were in the offseason with some of these portal acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think, from the very beginning of that conversation that we had, Mike Waters and I sat down with Adrian Autry last week. In the very beginning of that conversation, he wanted to make very clear that the primary thing that they wanted to do in the offseason was retain Donnie and retain JJ. They believe those two guys are two of the better guys in the ACC and at their positions. They thought, if they could recruit their own two guys who they think are very good, then they will build the rest of the roster around those two guys. And they didn't, Adrian didn't seem to be all that worried that they would lose him. I think that they've had open communications with them all along, and I think that they thought those two guys were going to come back. I don't think it was a hard sell or a tough sell. I mean, I think JJ in particular, he has talked about this is his hometown. Before he has a very good relationship with Adrian. Before he leaves Syracuse, he wants Syracuse to become the program that he believes Syracuse can become. So I think the sell with JJ and with Donnie might not have been as hard as maybe some of us might have imagined, because I think both of those two guys could have gone into the portal and, done fairly well for themselves. So I think they knew sort of going into it that they were going to have those two foundational pieces. And then the idea was they were going to build around those two guys to sort of complement those two guys' games. And I think, the interesting thing that came up in that conversation for me was JJ and Donnie were very involved in the kinds of players that they pursued, in that they were shown NBA prototypes before any of these guys got in the portal about what they wanted these different positional players to look like. And then once those guys actually got into the portal that sort of fit that prototype, and that those players became interested in Syracuse, so there was mutual interest, then they would show them video of those specific guys. And I think they were very involved in the recruiting process. They went to dinner with them. I think they were, trying to sell their program with guys that Syracuse brought in. And so I think they were very mindful of, like, here's our two main guys, and we love these two guys. And how are we going to make these two guys better, and how are we going to make the rest of our team better by building around those two guys?
I think we would all agree that the portal did not go well last year, and I think we would all agree that one of the factors, not saying it was the only factor, but one of the factors was NIL money. And again, in your article, you alluded to the fact that Autry, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it sounds like he feels comfortable with where the NIL resources are right now, and that, last year maybe they had issues signing the point guard that they wanted, but this year it sounds like they went after guys, and for the most part, they got the targets that they wanted.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. I mean, he said that last year there was a couple of guys that they wanted that they just couldn't afford. And this year it seemed as if they got, he said, specifically that they got the guys that they wanted to get. Now I don't know if, they wanted 1A and 1B, and they got 1B instead of 1A. But I think all the guys that they wanted, that they got, were guys that were on their radar, that they were interested in, that they liked their style of play, and that their style of play fit the kind of roster they were trying to construct. So I think he did say that they were, and obviously a big part of that is the rev share part of it, which, they didn't have last year, but every team has rev share money this year. But I think, Syracuse, every team can distribute that revenue share money the way they want to. And Syracuse has told us, John Wildhack told us earlier, that they were going to portion out a decent share of that rev share money to the basketball program. So I think the rev share money that they're going to get was a big part of what they could offer some of these players.
You just said a moment ago it's the beginning of June, and it's hard to kind of project out what this is going to look like. But I think we go back to last year, and Adrian Autry had said that they wanted to play faster and wanted to create more possessions. And part of the problem with that last year was defensively, when you create more possessions, that can expose you defensively. And I think we saw that a little bit last year. Teams were getting more possessions. They were scoring more points. And Syracuse maybe didn't run as much as they wanted to because of various, because of personnel on the floor. Let's put it like that. The roster that you see right now, Donna, it seems like they're better defensively, and it seems like they're more athletic. Do you think we will get a truer sense of Adrian Autry's system? And I realize it's only June, but do you get that sense looking at this roster?
Well, funnily enough, I'm going to write a story about that. I do think that they're going to be a different kind of teams in terms of transition. I think the players that they brought in, purposefully were guys who were more athletic and could get up and down a little bit better, and who suited a style of maybe running a little bit more, maybe pressuring the ball a little more, maybe getting in the passing lanes a little bit more, to be a little bit more disruptive, to get more chances in transition. And he did say that specifically, like, they did still want to make sure that they rebounded. They wanted guys out there who could rebound their position, because that's obviously a huge in terms of transition as well. And I mean, if last year's team didn't do a whole lot of things great, but they were a very good rebounding team. And so he wanted to keep the rebounding. I think who knows? We'll see what happens with the rebounding and what happens with defense. But I can't imagine that they would be worse defensively. It just seems if you have better athletes, you're going to be better defensively, right?
Last year they also didn't have a lot of options from beyond the 3-point line. Do you see them getting better at that this year with what they've got?
Well, one of the guys I really am intrigued by is Nate Kings. That's the guy that they're getting from Oregon State. I think this young man shot 44% from three last year. He's a lefty shooter. He's 6'5". He's also a very good athlete. He's the guy that really intrigues me. I mean, Kyan Anthony can shoot it. He's a little streakier, but he can shoot it. I think JJ, when he's off the ball, as much as he's going to be off the ball this year, could be a much better shooter than he was last year. I just think he was asked to do a whole lot of stuff last year, and sometimes I think it can wear on you a little bit. And I think his shooting may have suffered a little bit because he was doing just too much stuff. So I think hopefully JJ will get a little bit better shooting the ball. I'm trying to just mentally go through the rest of the roster. I think Tyler Betsy's a guy. Like Tyler Betsy, he's a guy that Adrian seemed really, really high on. He really liked him. He said he recruited him part of the high school, and he's another guy who can shoot it, and who I think they think can shoot it. And so again, but we thought they'd be better shooting it last year too, and they weren't. So until you get out there and actually start playing, you never really know. But I think they have a few guys who can shoot it this year, I think.
We all saw how good Nathan George could be at Georgia Tech. Who do you think is going to be backing him up at the point guard position?
Well, I mean, I think when I saw JJ like in maybe April or something like that, and JJ said he thinks he's still going to play a little bit of point guard here and there. I think Luke Fennell is a guy who they anticipate being a point guard at some point here at Syracuse. I think he could play a little bit of point guard. I think Nate George is going to have the ball a lot, though. I mean, and I think JJ is probably going to be the second option at point.
Now, Donna, I know that the reason we had you on today was to talk about this story, and it's about the transfers in particular, and not to give too much away of your other content. But can you touch on the freshmen at all coming in? And did Adrian Autry speak to what the plan is for a Kyan Anthony and a Sadiq White? And are they going to be guys that are competing for starting jobs? Are they going to be guys that are probably going to be coming off the bench as freshmen? Do you have a feel for that?
We didn't talk at all about who's going to start and who's not going to start, because I think right now, like on June, we talked on last week, so it was the end of May. Like, I don't think he has any idea who's going to start. I mean, he probably has some idea, but I don't think until the guys get in the gym and start actually competing, he knows who's going to start and who's not going to start. I mean, you can certainly pencil in like JJ and Donna are definitely going to start,
right.
And then I actually don't know who's going to. I mean, I would assume Nate Kings is going to start, but I don't know.
Probably Nathan George. So that's 4, and then a center. So the way we look at it is we wonder. We kind of wonder, and we've been kind of planning it out too, and saying obviously things could change, but we look at it and we say maybe last year we might have thought that, well, of course Kyan Anthony or Sadiq White, they're going to start, but now it kind of looks like, based on who they got, I guess that's why I'm asking the question, is that they may very well have to come off the bench. And I don't know. Do you have any feel for that, or if that might be an issue with these two high-profile freshmen coming in, and they might have to be role players their first year?
I don't think so. I mean, I think both of those guys, both of them are top 50 guys. I think they're like the top 40 guys, right? And Kyan is a much better offensive player, and Sadiq is a much better defensive player. They're different kinds of guys. Like, and I think both of them are going to play a lot. And I think Adrian did allude to the fact that he loves the class that they got. And so I assume he means he loves the top of that class in particular, right?
Sure.
Because those two guys were the highest profile, the best ranked players in their class. Now, I mean, who knows? I mean, whether somebody's ranked 31st or 61st, I mean, is there that big of a difference? And anything can happen. But it seems like those two guys, I think they have high hopes for, and I think those two guys are going to play quite a bit.
Season was over, had time to digest it. How is Coach Autry? How did he come across to you that he's handling all of this? I don't have to tell you that there's a portion of the fan base that was not exactly nice to him during the season last year. And how do you think he's handled it? And going forward, how do you think he'll do?
I think he's a pretty tough guy. I mean, I think he certainly is aware that there's a lot of tough conversations about him, and I the thing that I think he thinks about more, not so much is he going to continue to coach after next year, which I'm sure it crosses his mind, but I think he just legit wants to get better, wants to get the program better. Like, he's a company guy, like he came through Syracuse, he played here, he's coached here. He wants the program to be good. And I think that's his primary objective is to get the program back to where he thinks the program should be. I don't think he has a whole lot of existential thoughts about what's next March going to look like if we don't play. I think he's really pretty much just focused on how can I get my team better, and then the chips will fall where they may, I guess, right?
Donna, anything else that was important from that conversation that you want to get across to us, or anything you want to tease, I guess, with more of your content coming out in the coming days and weeks?
No, I just think it was a good conversation for us to have. Everybody wants access to the head coach, right? Because he's the guy he's the decision maker. He decides what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. And it was good to sit down with him and hear his thoughts about all these players. We didn't, like I said, we didn't get too deep into the freshmen because we've talked about the freshmen with him in the past. But I think it was interesting just to see sort of, for me, it was my story was going to be about why they got the players they got in the transfer portal and what about those players appealed to Syracuse. And in that sense, he was great. He was very detailed into how they went about getting each of these guys, and specifically that they were better prepared this year because they had a general manager. And, he was clear that, he's the guy who's driving the bus, so to speak. He's the guy who's making all the decisions. But it was so much easier this year because Alex Klein had spent the entire year essentially, trying to gauge the value, for whatever, for lack of a better term, of each of these players who could go into the portal. These were the kind of players who Adrian Autry wanted at these various positions, and what guys might be available. He did a lot of film study on all these guys, and then would present them to Adrian. Here's some options at center, for example. So I think once the portal opened, they were much better prepared this year to sort of get into it from the jump.
It's kind of like going into a fantasy draft with your cheat sheet. I need a tight end, and you've got your top 5 right here. Okay. All right, Donna, really insightful stuff. We appreciate you coming on. Keep up the good work. Hopefully you can enjoy some of the summer as well and the nice weather ahead. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks very much. Take care, you guys.
All right. You as well. Donna Ditota joining us from Syracuse.com. Does a great job covering the team, and you can check out her work there. With that, we'll hit our final timeout in hour number 1. We've got Dave McMenamin coming up at 1:30 to preview the NBA Finals. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.